Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is JJ and I am a reader, a writer, and a book nerd, essentially. I'm a generalized nerd too, like I love video games and movies and TV shows as well. I love mostly just anything to do with story, and that is what I want to talk to you about today. We are talking today, we're doing a book review of Wrath of the Triple Goddess, which is a fun Halloween story in the Percy Jackson series. This whole thing takes place in October, right around the week of Halloween. Super interesting, super cool plot, like time frame. I haven't found many other like Halloween books, so it's kind of, I always love having themed reading to go along with like the actual calendar. So even, you know, as I'm filming this, I'm reading A Christmas Story because I'm filming this right around Christmas. That'll tell you how long it takes for me to upload and edit these things. However, I wanted to tell you today about my thoughts on The Wrath of the Triple Goddess because I did the first one in the series, the Chalice of the Gods, and I loved that one. If you haven't seen that, I'll put the link somewhere at the end of the video probably, and you can go find that review. This one, I still loved it, don't get me wrong. I really did enjoy this plot line. I love these characters. I love that we're getting more Percy Jackson. I love it. And Annabeth and Grover, seeing them all grown up and dealing with things, all grown up, they're like not even in college, but dealing with the things that make for such interesting plot lines as developing kids are also reading these books, right? Percy in this series is dealing with thoughts of the future. He's dealing with dreams that he wasn't really ever sure he would get to have. And I think for a lot of young kids, not to get a little bit dark on this channel, but there is a lot of kids out there who never really planned past college or didn't think past high school because they didn't expect that they would be around for it. And that's yet another way that Percy is just being such a relatable force in the world, and especially now. I mean, when I was in high school, this was a concern. The kids now who are in high school, it's not just a concern, it's a probability that they'll deal with some sort of violence during high school in America, right? And so to have, I mean, for them to go to school is as dangerous as walking down the street. In some cases, it's more dangerous, right? The half-bloods and demigods, generally speaking, are not expected to live past like 15 years old because they're being hunted by monsters their whole life. And I don't think that's something that Riordan meant to make into some sort of comforting message for his readership, because nobody knew that that was going to happen. Nobody knew that like school violence was going to become a mainstream enough thing that any American who goes to high school has to deal with the fear of it, right? At this point, it's very rare to find people who don't have some sort of friend or connection who is involved or impacted by a shooting of some sort, right? So to have these characters that are so traumatized still planning for the future and trying to get into college and trying to plan ahead that far to be like, this is what I want from life. I just want to go be where you are because you're my person. We're endgame and I can't see my life without you. All that really matters is being where you are. And if you're going to college, then I'm going too, right? Like to have that sort of cute, adorable romance going on between Percy and Annabeth, which is adorable, first of all. And secondly, thank you, Uncle Rick, for not having there be tension between Percy and Annabeth as a main plot point. Thank you for giving us a healthy, good relationship between characters who we love and who we all ship, so that we can have that in media. It is so rare for characters who are together to not have the drama between them that can happen in relationships. be a key point of conflict in a plot. So thank you so much for just letting them be happy and fluffy and romantic. Okay, that being said, this book did not hit as hard as the first book. The first book, and this is where the spoilers begin. So this is your spoiler warning. You've been warned. Okay. The first book was incredible because there was a bad guy, and the bad guy was aging, was growing up, which is a very relatable thing. Nobody ever wants to grow up. Some people grow up too quickly, but nobody ever wants to grow up, at least in my experience. That's part of the appeal of Peter Pan, right? To never age, to never get older, to be able to stay in youth, both physically and also in the joys and frivolousness of childhood, is very appealing. And so to have, I mean, it is the thing that everyone fights all the time. We're always trying to maintain what we were before, rather than embracing who we are going forward. And that message of Percy literally hugging Gary, we're going to call him Gary because I can't remember his name and that's what Percy calls him. Possibly Jerry for geriatric. Anyway, to have Percy embrace the god of old age and dying, to be able to envision a future where he and Annabeth are 50s, 60s, they have kids, right? That was such a beautiful way to do that storyline. And that depth I felt was lacking in this book. There's things about this, right? It's always tricky when you're planning a trilogy, which I'm pretty sure that this one is. Trilogies, the second book, is hard because the overarching plot of a 3-act structure, the midpoint is a very big decision point, right? It is a crossroads, which is why this book is pretty impactful as it is. Hecate, the goddess of magic, crossroads, decisions, among various other things. her repertoire is quite long. She is the goddess of crossroads, where you make decisions, where you can decide who you're going to be when you go down a path, right? Which path you're going to go down and what it looks like, what it means to pursue that choice. And that is a lovely, wonderful thing. The thing that I didn't love about it is that theming had very little to do with the epic battle at the end, right? And so there are moments, this book is a very episodic book, right? There's Percy is pet sitting. I realized I haven't told you anything about it. Percy is pet sitting for Hecate. She has a hellhound and a polecat and a bunch of eels and a enchanted magic mansion where you can brew potions in the kitchen, and there's a crazy magic library that is probably dangerous. There's eels that want to eat you and all that jazz, right? Hecate is going away to celebrate Halloween around the world because it's her holiday. She wants to be free to go enjoy all of the festivities. And so she hires Percy in exchange for a letter of recommendation to house sit for her. Percy brings Annabeth and Grover. Chaos ensues because Grover loves strawberries. My boy, he loves strawberries. And I think that's one of the things about this book that really kind of hits differently, and it's one of the things that's not making it hit quite as hard, is that this book, the plot is not so much about Percy and his crossroads. The plot is more about Annabeth and Grover and their crossroads, but it's still told from Percy's perspective, so you don't get a lot of that depth into those points of view as you would have if this had been a multi-POV book. And And again, don't get me wrong, I love that we have Percy's perspective again. I love his humor. I love his narration. I love how he tells this plot, what he focuses on, all of his little quips. Except I think that this one would have hit better if it was a multi-POV book. Like, I wish we had Annabeth's perspective. I wish we had Grover's perspective for a couple little moments, right? And a lot of that is because there was action that all occurred off screen, if you will, right? So Percy and Annabeth are still going to school in the midst of all of this house sitting. Grover, like I said, loves strawberries, and especially strawberry milkshake. There was a potion that was a strawberry milkshake scented potion that all he had to do was move it from one place to another without tasting it. He's Grover. He loves food. Of course he's going to taste it, right? He tastes it, he becomes mega-sized, he somehow, because it's off screen, we don't know exactly how this happens, but he like destroys the mansion completely. Like, doors busted down, windows broken, pets are loose on the streets of Manhattan. It's a nightmare, right? And so most of the book is spent trying to find the Hellhound, trying to find and rescue the polecat, and then trying to put the mansion back together. It's a 3-part plot, and none of them is really the climax. It's kind of like 3 mini stories, with no major villain and no big resolution. The biggest antagonist in this book is the fact that the friends are potentially going to be splitting up if Grover doesn't follow them to New Rome University, right? That's the biggest antagonist, is their emotions about being split up and being left behind and dealing with all of that reality, right? And that's a good theme to be exploring and discussing. And I love that Rick is going into all of, again, I love that he's doing all of this because it's so important in these scenarios and in these settings and for these characters. We don't often get to see the aftermath of all of their adventures, right? And that's one of the coolest things about these books. However, not having a major resolution and having the big battle at the end not really be about a whole lot. There is nothing really going on other than cool fight scene, right? That's the part that made this kind of feel disappointing for me. Because they raise the dead. They use the torches, they raise the dead to help rebuild this mansion. The torches, as it turns out, are really heavy. They're a goddess's tools to raise the dead. A goddess could do this, no problem, but they're not gods or goddesses, and it turns out they're very heavy, they're very hard to use, and if you fail, the dead will devour you. Not fun. They raise the dead. They raise this army of the dead, one of whom happens to be the son, a demigod son of Hecate. And he hates her. He hates her. He hates that he's now rebuilding her mansion. He hates what has happened to New York, because he was one of the major architects who helped build all of New York. And he hates Hecate. He hates witches. He wants everything to burn, right? So that tension, that drama, doesn't happen so much. That doesn't have anything to do with our characters and their quests. It doesn't have anything to do with their own intentions here, other than getting the mansion rebuilt. There's drama there, there's difficulty there, but it's not a very strong resolution for the tension and drama of my friends are going away, I have to get this house put together, we have to save Manhattan from this crowd of undead that we raised, and on top of all of that, Hecate is going to kill us if she comes back and finds our house like this, right? So There's a lot of things about that final ending that were just not that compelling, right? It didn't wrap everything up in the crossroads of, will Percy do this and go to college, or will he not, right? Will Annabeth will she be able to handle the weight of college and Percy's reality of not being the brightest bulb in the box, right? Seaweed brain, as she calls him. He's powerful and he's strong, but he's not that clever. Sometimes he is, but this book also, I will say that one of the things that I love about it is that it could also be retitled to Percy Learns Empathy, right? Percy is not necessarily unempathetic, but he spends all of his time fighting monsters. He sees a monster, he's been pretty much hardwired to respond by attacking them. In this book, Percy had to learn that perhaps being on the defensive and the offensive first is not always the right call. Sometimes people just need to be understood and then they'll stop wreaking havoc. That was the case with Hecuba, the Hellhound. That was also the case with Gale. They needed to be understood before they could be reasoned with, because they were highly emotional creatures who have been ripped away from everything that they knew and loved and turned into house pets, which is not necessarily what you would expect from the best witch to ever walk the earth, or a mother who lost all of her children in the battle for Troy, right? And so that part was so fulfilling. Getting to see all of the humor of being, shadow traveled around the world with Hecuba, but also seeing Percy just comforting these people who were turned into animals. Having him comfort them and having that be the resolution was so wonderful and powerful. And then at the end, it's still a battle where that theme is not carrying on in the end, in the final battle. And I think that's what made me not love this book as much as I loved the first one, even though I still really enjoyed the process of reading this book. It's still highly entertaining. I laughed a lot. It's clever. It's funny. It's scenarios that I wouldn't expect to see Percy Jackson in, which is kind of fun too. Like Percy and Grover go perfume shopping. That was hilarious. It was not something that I expected to see. I love seeing demigods in the midst of their day-to-day life, right? It's a much more domestic plotline of seeing them living and just seeing them go through life together. If they're ordering pizza, what kind of pizza do they order? How do they leave messages for each other if they can't necessarily iris message and they can't carry cell phones? That's such a cool way it's a cool thing to see and to keep building that canon. I just wish that the final battle had been more entrenched in the theme, given the nature of how the first one was so powerful. It was so lovely. And I think I mentioned this in the first review too, but the most clever thing that Riordan is doing in these books is that he's taken our characters and he's made the plot so small that it's big enough to stand up in the shadow of the past huge, world-encompassing plots, right? Percy has saved the world on multiple occasions. After a certain point, you can't keep putting a character in world-ending scenarios because you know that he's always going to succeed. This is the problem that Supernatural faced. After the actual apocalypse, like the biblical revelation apocalypse, right, that happens in season 5 of Supernatural, the world was supposed to end. Where do you go from there? How do you take these characters into the future that wasn't supposed to exist, that wasn't supposed to be present? Even the show was supposed to end after season 5. What do you do in that follow-up, right? What do you do in Star Wars after you've already taken out the Empire and the Death Star? Star Wars was like, well, let's just make a bigger Death planet instead, right? That's not necessarily the best way to do it. That's the same story reskinned. What Riordan is doing so cleverly in these books is that he took these characters who have saved the world on multiple occasions, and he's putting them in scenarios where they have to deal with the inner realities of normal life and the tension and the drama that comes from normal life. And that is brilliant because it makes the plot manageable again. It makes it inward focused. It's Percy against himself more than it's Percy against the whole world. And that is incredible and brilliant and beautiful because it means that the books are still extremely relevant. They continue to be relevant, and I think they will stay relevant for a very long time. You're also not going to get that fatigue of world-shattering, world-ending plots. And this is something that new writers do often, is that they put the world in danger and then they decide to write a series. You can't start with putting the world in danger. You have to start with like a little town or a family because it has to have space to grow. So the fact that Riordan so powerfully went backwards from, okay, the world's been in danger, now let's go back to a town and a family, is a really powerful way to do that storytelling continuation of these storylines. So I love what he's doing in these books. Generally speaking, I just was not quite as enthralled with the ending. I loved everything else about it. It's just the ending of this one that wasn't necessarily my favorite because we kind of lost the theme. It was a really cool battle, really cool thought. I wish I had Annabeth's perspective as she's holding the torches and defending the manse. I wish I had that perspective. I wish I had Grover's point of view when he ate that strawberry milkshake. Those are the things that I wanted to see, but a lot of that happens not, I mean, like I said, the strawberry milkshake thing happens off screen. I wish I had Grover's perspective when he's grounding himself and becoming one with the earth. That would be really cool to feel and see and hear. Instead, we get Percy's perspective as his friend just like gets covered in squirrels, which is comical and hilarious, but not necessarily the powerful thing that was happening. So there's things about this that I wish I could have experienced from the other characters. That isn't to say it's not a good book. It's still a lovely book. It's a wonderful book. I think, I would give it 4.5 stars because it really was just the ending that didn't quite sit right with me. I'm still going to absolutely buy and read the next one. I love them. I'm adding to my collection. How many Percy Jackson books can one person have? My goal is to have all of them, right? So all of that to say, I love this book. If you like Percy Jackson, the good thing is too, you don't have to read these books in order. So you can read this one at Halloween, even if you haven't read Chalice of the Gods. They're very fall themed books because we're going through Percy's fall semester, which is so fun. I love that they're fall themed books. That probably means that the next one is going to be Christmas themed. I wouldn't be surprised if the next one is Christmas themed because we're moving through the fall semester. We hit Halloween. November is next. So it's either going to be Thanksgiving or Christmas. I don't know how the Greeks did that, how that's going to fall into place with the Greek stuff. I don't know if Rick's going to do that. It would be really cool if we have a Christmas Percy Jackson book. I would love that. We'll see. We'll see if I'm right. If I am right, you heard it here first, maybe. I'm sure other people have had that thought, but just thinking in terms of longevity of the series, that's pretty likely. Plus, it means that Rick can write holiday stories, just holiday one-offs. Because these books, they don't have to be read in order. You can read them as standalones, which is really cool. You can jump in wherever you left off. Or you can read them in order, or you can just pick one up as it suits you. So, yeah. Okay. Anyway, that thought that I just had of it being a Christmas novel next, that made me really excited and really happy. We'll see. I hope I didn't just get everybody's hopes up, because I have no idea what's going on. I'm not the one in the writing room, if you will. Anyway, I liked this book. I think you should go read the books. They're still really good. It wasn't necessarily my favorite ending, like I said, but overall, still a really good book. If you've read these books and you want to talk Percy Jackson, hit me up in the comment section. Let's chat. I would love to chat about these books. Okay, until next time. I'll see you then. Bye.